Let's just put some soft background music over here.
Yeah. Hi friends, how's it going?
Hi.
Hello everyone. Awesome.
But can we talk and hear us?
All right, good morning everyone. How's it going?
Morning.
Good morning. So before we get started, I want to make sure everyone can see me and hear me, but we do want to make sure that our microphones are muted and unless you have a question or a comment that you'd like to make, just so that there's not any extra background noise. Sometimes it makes it a little tricky to hear. So if you go down to the bottom left of either your iPad or your phone or your computer screen, it should be, there's a little microphone that you just want to click so that there's a line through it, just so that if you have any questions, you can obviously unmute it and ask me anything that you need, but just so that there's not a little extra background noise, we want to make sure it's a little bit quieter. So I want to make sure everyone has everything that they need to get started today. So if you'd like to wear an apron, we did put a little plastic one in your box. So you can take that out. It's wrapped up with a rubber band. And let's see, I'm going to just go through all of my supplies so that you guys have everything that you'll need. So I'm going to start off with the brushes. We're going to start off today with a big brush. You have something like this, and we might want something a little bit smaller for when we go around the edges. As you guys will notice when you pull your canvas out, either up into an easel or flat on the table, that we've already sketched in your outline for your Yoda. So we are going to be trying to avoid, going too much into those lines. So if you have a smaller brush, kind of like this, or even a round one will work too, make sure that you get really close to the line without going too far into it with a big brush. We're also going to use a medium-sized round brush. That'll be for when we go in to do Yoda. And a little detail brush for all of our little details and his smile and everything else. So hopefully you guys can see our example image back here, and I'll be painting along with you too. So we've got So we want to pull out, first of all, we're going to use our sandy color, like that. This would be the largest, one of the larger bags that you have. And we're going to use some red. So I'm just going to, you can move all the other colors in your box for now.
Mom, it's on. Off.
I'm sorry, we can't hear you anymore.
Oh, I think,
Bluetooth.
yeah, let me disconnect from the speaker.
I think it was the other speaker.
Okay. Can you guys hear me still? Okay, awesome. Awesome. Sorry about that. So I'm going to cut into my little bag of sand here and just pour that out. We also want to make sure we have a cup of water to wash our brushes off. So I've got my little plastic cup here, and we have these moons right in the background, right? Like we're on an alien planet. So I have these little tracers here, just a paper plate and a little cap. So you can use those when we get to it. That will be one of the last steps, so you don't really need to worry about that right now. Or we can freehand it in, it's up to you. We just want to make sure that they don't get too large, so that's why we try to use some tracers. I've got a paper plate with my paint on it, so you guys can go ahead and empty that out. Let's see, what else am I forgetting? A rag or a paper towel to dry your brushes off or wipe your hands off if you get any paint on them. That'll be really helpful. And I think that's about it. So if you guys have any questions throughout the video, you can go ahead and unmute your microphone and just ask me or give me a little wave and I'll help you guys out. So as long as everyone is all set and ready, you probably want to have a pair of scissors handy as well to go ahead and cut into your paint bags. So I'll give everyone just a second to get all set up and we'll get started. All right, so I'm gonna start off with the sandy color first. So I'm gonna go in with my big brush. And you guys can go ahead and do this as well. we're gonna get some paint on both sides. Now, we wanna make sure that we're going back and forth instead of up and down. So we're gonna use it like a big fishtail and just go back and forth right across the whole canvas. And I'm gonna start up at the top just because it's a little bit easier to see all up here. And then we might end up needing our smaller brush to go in along the edges here. So we're gonna come down about halfway, right about to where, let's see, right about where his collar starts, his little jacket starts. So you can go ahead and get started, and we're gonna just back and forth nice and quickly get our background started. So we're gonna go back and forth, and you can go back over if there's any little pockets in your canvas, any little dots that still stay white after you put your first brush stroke across, just go back again so that it fills all those little pores in your canvas in. And I'm gonna use my large brush to go around Yoda, but you can use a smaller one if you like, if you feel a little bit nervous about going into the lines. The good thing is that this sandy color is really nice and light. So if you do get a little bit in his ears or on the top of his head, we can just go in with our green and it'll just make it a little bit lighter on top, which actually works out really well because if you think about it, the sun or the moons are shining down, so there's a little bit of extra light up on top of his head. So I'm just gonna very carefully go right along that line. You can use the skinny part of your brush. I'm gonna turn my canvas just a little bit so it's easier for me to see, but I'll turn it back around so that you guys aren't following blindly. We want to try to make it really nice and smooth. We're gonna imagine that we're on an alien desert planet instead of the snow that we're getting this morning. So I'm gonna start filling in underneath his ear, and we don't wanna come down too much further. Then do you see this little dot right here? That's going to be my marker to stop our sand color before we go into the red. I think I'm gonna use my little brush for just a second to get right in here. Excellent, that works a lot better. Oops. Awesome, and I'm gonna come down on this side. And you can either eyeball it or you can maybe take your finger and measure right across where you think that other side should start coming down. So I'm gonna put a little line right there. You see that? Right here, just to make sure I don't come down too far. I'm gonna go right around the edge. Maybe it's easier to outline first and then you can take your larger brush and fill the rest of that area in. Awesome. Just like that. If there's some lighter streaks in the sky, that's okay. It'll make it look a little bit cloudier, a little bit hazier, like you're on an alien planet, right? Awesome. All right. So we'll give everyone just a couple more seconds to get caught up. When you're finished, you can go ahead and just dry your brush off. We don't need to wash it right now because we're going to be doing a little bit of blending. If you can see here on my example, we're going to try to get sort of this little bit of ombre here, right? This little fade from red up into our sky. So when you're ready, you can go ahead and take your red on your brush. Like I said, you don't need to wash it in your water. We're just going to dry it off so that there's no extra paint on there. And we're going to very carefully go right along the line here, and you'll notice it's going to start blending a little bit. Now I'm going to take my little brush again. Oops, I put it in my water. Take my little brush again and go right along that line and just help it out to blend it a little bit. That way, if you use your little brush, you don't have to worry so much about going into his sleeves. And I'm just gonna very carefully pull it right around his finger, his little hand there. And I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. We're gonna come right across like this. I'm gonna make it a little bit higher. And I'm going to go ahead and just outline the rest of Yoda. And then I'll go back in with my larger brush and fill in any of the white areas that are left. Awesome. Now it's up to you how much you'd like to blend your sand into your red. You want it to look a little bit lighter, you can go ahead and add a little bit more sand in there. Or it can be a nice bright red like I have on mine here. Just like that. Awesome. So when you're finished with your red and your sand, you can go ahead and get your brushes nice and clean. You can either leave them in your water or you can go ahead and get them really nice and clean. I'm gonna show you guys how to do that. You just spin it around in your cup, let it drip off. Maybe spin it around again, and then you want to dry it off really well on your rag. And you can either set it to the side or leave it right in your cup of water until you're finished. And I'll give everyone a couple more minutes to get their backgrounds worked in. It looks like everyone's still working. So I've done this painting a couple of times, so it's pretty fast for me, but it's looking like everyone's doing really well. Awesome. Now, if you're all set with your background, I know a couple of people are still working, so that's okay. But you can, our next step is going to be our green for Yoda's face and his little hands. So you can go ahead, if you're ready, you can go ahead and pull out your green paint and get that right on your palette. And we're going to use our round brushes now. I've got my little detail brush, maybe for the edges, and a rounder one, a little bit bigger, to fill in a little bit more. Now you'll notice when you go in with the green that his hand might start to disappear up into his ear, but that's okay. We've got a little tiny bit of black to do his eyes and some outlines afterwards. So we don't have to worry too much about his hand disappearing up there. All right. So I know a couple of you guys are still working, that's okay. I'm gonna start jumping into filling in the green, but you guys, it's really easy to follow along, so don't you worry. I'm gonna take some green on my brush, And it's up to you where you'd like to start. I think I'm gonna start on the top of his head and then work my way down. But if you wanna start somewhere else, and you know what? This might be a good opportunity to take your canvas out of your easel if you're using one. If it's flat on the table, you're perfect. But it might make it a little bit easier to stay in the lines if you've got a little bit of room to put your elbow down on the table. I'm gonna keep mine up so you guys can see while I'm painting. But I'm going to go in, just be careful that you don't get your wrist. I just put my wrist in my red. So just be careful that you're not smearing other colors across the canvas. But I'm gonna start going in with some green. Let me just start right down the middle of his face. Just like that. I wanna very carefully go around his eyes. If you do go into his eyes a little bit, that's okay. The black that we're going to use to fill in his eyes will cover right up over that green. But we do want to at least leave a little bit so we know where they are. And we go right around. It kind of looks like, it'll look like he's wearing glasses. Right across the top of his head. Now, when we get into his ears, we want to make sure, I'm going to hold this one up for a second, that we're leaving the middle empty, because we're going to use some pink in there to give him that little, the inside of his ears, make them a little bit lighter. So just try to make sure you don't go too far into the middle of his ears. Because when you mix pink and green together, it kind of turns brown. Just like that. I'm going to downsize to my little brush. Make sure I'm not going too far out of my lines here. And I'm going to use this little brush as well to do just a little line on the bottom of his ear. Just like that. Same thing on this side. I'm gonna go back to my larger round brush and fill in the rest of his face. If there's a lot of brush strokes, like mine is looking a little bit, like it has too many brush strokes in it, you can go back once you get it all filled in with your brush and just kind of smooth everything out. Or you can leave a little bit more texture in there, it's up to you. Awesome. So I've got my face all filled in. We'll give everyone a couple of seconds before we jump into the hands. All right. So when you're ready, we're going to take our little tiny brush again, and we're going to very carefully outline his little fingers. And as as I'm outlining, I'm actually already filling in his little hand because it's so small. Very carefully go in and do both his little hands. Just like this. All right, so we'll let everyone finish up with their green. Awesome, so if you are finished filling in Yoda's face and his little hands, you can go ahead and pull out your dark brown. It's this color that my finger is right next to. And it's up to you whether you'd like to use your little brush or the round one that we were just using, but make sure that if it's a brush that you've already used, you get it nice and clean in your water so that we don't end up with any other colors mixed into our brown that we don't want to mix into our brown. Awesome.
I want to see if there's anyone on here I recognize.
Jeffrey's on here. We got
Jeffrey's on here again?
Dylan.
Wow. I see some familiar
Awesome.
names too. Look at
These are
all
New
this
Jersey
progress. Hi, guys.
friends.
Hi. I see some New Jersey buddies over there. You guys are doing awesome.
Really great.
Wow.
Hi,
Hi, guys.
Hi.
I'm doing another order, so I'm just changing my gloves. Sorry, I'm jumping into class. I just had to see how you're doing. This is so much fun, isn't it? It's
Everyone's
cool.
doing great.
We'll keep it
Awesome,
up. It's looking
awesome.
really good.
All right. So it looks like everyone's starting to finish up. If you're still working on your green, no worries. Like I said, my picture is going to be up here the whole time, so you can just take a look. I'm going to take my brown, and we're going to do some of the darker shadows that you can see kind of back here. And then we'll use a little bit of the sand color that we have left over to make some lighter shades in our brown for his little blanket jacket that he's got going on here. So let's see, I'm going to take my dark brown and I'm going to start on his little collar on the left side like I have here. This little collar, I guess that's the right. I'm looking in my mirrored image. It's the right color. It doesn't really matter which one you start with. And get that nice and filled in. We want to go right to the edge so that there's no white showing. You'll notice that I left a little bit of a gap in between the green and the brown. That's going to be become black afterwards. We're going to add, it'll help it look like a little bit more of a shadow. It'll make his jacket look a little bit more three-dimensional. And while I'm working on this side, I might as well just go right on down here. Follow that zigzag. Now I'm keeping my brush strokes mostly back and forth because that'll make it a little bit easier to blend some of our sand in there to make some little highlights in his jacket. I'm outlining a little bit more to make sure I don't go out of my lines. I'm gonna leave his little sleeve here white so that we can go in with a little bit of a lighter color there. Just like this. Awesome. So now I'm gonna take a little bit of my brown, kind of, you can see I got a big scoop on my brush. I'm gonna put it on an empty part of my canvas, not my canvas, sorry, my palette, my paper plate, and a little bit of our sand, and we're just going to very quickly mix that together. It doesn't need to be perfectly blended because it's going to be pretty streaky anyways on our canvas, but we just wanna lighten up that dark brown just a little bit to go in to do the other side. So same idea, I'm going to come in from his sleeve into this collar, this side over here. If you need to, you can go ahead and use your little small detail brush instead of this larger one. You feel like you're getting too close into the green. I'm gonna go back to just the dark brown. If there's still some of the lighter brown on your brush, that's okay. It'll help it be a little bit streakier. We're going to go into this side in a little bit and streak in some of that sand as well. Nice. All right. So we'll give everyone a couple of seconds to get caught up, and then we'll start streaking in a little bit more sand. And I'll show you what to do for his little sleeves. I'm gonna turn this so everyone can see a little bit better. The great thing about this Yoda painting is that we don't really have to wait, because we already traced our Yoda in before you even got your canvas. We don't have to wait for anything to dry. We can just keep going the whole time instead of having to wait to put our tracer on. Because if you've taken a class with us before, you kind of know that you can't put the tracer on the canvas when the canvas is still wet, because you'll end up peeling off a lot of your paint. But we don't have to worry about that today. All right, so while everyone's finishing up with their lighter brown, I'm going to take, actually, I think I'm going to downsize again and go back to my little brush, my little detail brush. I'm going to take a little bit of sand on my brush and just streak a little bit in here and there through the darker brown, just to give it a little bit of a highlight. And when you're ready, you can go ahead and mix up an even lighter dark brown, if that makes sense. We're going to take some of our dark brown and a little bit more sand than we used the last time to make our light brown, just to make it a little bit lighter for his sleeves. It's up to you how dark or light you want it, but I'm going to use a color kind of like this. Medium brown. So for those of you who are all set with your brown, you can go ahead and get your brushes nice and clean. And we're going to take out our light pink, our really, really nice light. It's almost like a bubblegum color, right? There's not too much of that because we just need it for the inside of his ears. So you can take, I know some of you guys are still working on the last step, so that's okay. But I'm going to take my little tiny brush again, in my pink, and I'm just going to very carefully fill in his ears. Pretty easy.
Sam,
Yes,
the color for the ear, what color was that?
it's, here, let me hold up my plate. It's this light pink.
Okay. Don't know if I have that one.
Oh no. If you don't fret. Mix a little bit of your red into your sand.
Okay.
It'll make a pretty similar color. And if you have some white, you can do that too if you don't want it to be a more brown color. Yeah, if anyone, like Jeffrey is missing, I guess is missing his pink. So if you are, you can go ahead and take a little bit of white and a little bit of red and mix that together, and that'll make the right color. Sorry about that. I got a little bit of green in my pink, so I've got to wash my brush off and go back in and try that again. That is, you have to be a little bit careful going in and filling in the ears because some of your green might still be a little bit wet, and if it mixes in with your pink, it's going to turn a little bit brown, like I said before. So just be cautious. If you want to lay your canvas flat on the table, you can do that. And your sky up here should be dry enough that we don't want to be pushing on our canvas because we don't want it to, you can kind of see on the back, right? That it's not just a flat panel, right? We've got our little boards here. So if you push too hard, you can end up kind of denting your canvas and it'll be all floppy. But if you want to just very carefully rest your hand so that you have a little bit more of a surface, kind of like what I'm doing here, although my easel's sliding on me. Just like this. There we go. He looks a little bit spooky without his eyes filled in yet, but we'll get to that in just a couple of minutes. let everyone get all caught up. Our next step, if you're ready and waiting, we're going to be doing our moons. So if you want to find either a cup or a plate, like I have just a little paper plate, or you can even just freehand them in yourself, whatever you want. Yes, perfect. You guys, you have the same kind of thing as I do. That's awesome. So we'll just wait a couple of seconds. Yes, nice. They don't have to be two different sizes like mine. They can be the same size if you'd like. Yeah, nice, awesome. And I'll let everyone finish up so that we can all do this together. Our sky should be dry enough now, since we did that at the beginning, that you don't have to worry. If you're using a cup that you like, it probably won't get paint on it. And it's acrylic paint, so it's really easy to wash it right off, no worries. All right, so I'm going to grab a pencil. That'll help me just trace it in. And very lightly, I'm going to use my smaller one first. That's going to go in the sky right above his head. Now, if you're using an easel, this is probably a good time to take your canvas out of your easel and lay it flat on the table, unless you feel really good about, going in and putting it up in the sky. But I think if it's flat, it might just make it a little bit easier. It won't end up sliding around so much, right? Or falling. But I'm going to very carefully do it in my easel's sliding a little, so I am going to put it down on the table, but I'll move my camera so you guys can see. But it's pretty easy. We're going to take our pencil and just very carefully put right around the edge. We don't want to push down very hard at all, so that we just want a little suggestion of a line. It doesn't have to be super heavy, so that the graphite from the pencil, the pencil lead doesn't end up going into our white paint too much. And our second moon is going to go more on the edge here. Actually, I think I'm going to put mine on this side because I didn't leave myself too much room over here. So I'm going to put his moon right up here. Right off the corner like that. I don't know if you can see that so well, but as soon as I start painting, you'll be able to. Just right in the corner. So you can go ahead, if you've got your moons traced in. I'm going to take some white. Just a little bit of white. And probably my round brush, the larger one that we've been using quite a bit today. Get it all nice and clean and dry. I'm going to go in with that white. And I think I'll start with the one that I did first. Make sure that if you do end up putting your hand on your canvas, you don't have any paint on the side of it. It would be a shame to have a big green smear, up through our sky. So I'm gonna it's up to you if you want to fill in first and then outline. I think I'm going to outline first, so that our moons don't end up being too large, right? And the interesting thing about this white is that when you put it on, it's going to look really heavy. It's going to look really, really bright. But as it dries, it starts to kind of darken, which it's hard to think about white becoming darker without turning gray. But imagine like it starts to fade a little bit, and that'll look like it's up in the sky, up in the atmosphere, right? Just like that. And you can do your next moon as well, same idea. Mine's right in the corner here. Make sure you get right up to the top of your canvas. Right to the side. There we go, nice. Looking good, looking good. And we're almost at our last color, right? We only have one bag left that hasn't been opened, and that's going to be our black. So we'll let everyone have a couple more minutes to be, to do their moons, to fill their moons in. And then we'll get into a little bit of black. Nice. These are looking good. So when you are ready with your black on your palette, I'm going to use a special brush that I like, but your little detail brush is perfect for this job. I'm gonna start with the eyes first, I think. So I'll let everyone catch up so that no one's feeling left behind. All right, so I've got my black on my brush, and if you feel like the bristles on your brush are too puffy, like you're not gonna be able to stay in the lines well, I'll show you a little trick. We can take our black and our brush, we're gonna take the side of my plate like this, and the brush like this, and just give it a little bit of a roll so that all of the bristles end up twisting together, and that'll help it keep a nice sharp point. So I'm going to go in and very carefully, right around the outline of his eyes. Now, as I said before, if you filled a little bit too far into his eye with green, you can go back and reshape his eye if you'd like. Just make sure you don't make it too large so they take up his whole face, because we still need to put his little nose and his smile in. And it'll really start to come to life now that we're adding our detail color in. Excellent. Just like that. So now, I will wait for everyone to be ready so that I can show you how to do his little nose and his little mouth. But if you're all set with his eyes, if they're all filled in, you can go ahead and start doing the little shadows in his jacket. We've got the little shadow under his chin here. I'm gonna make sure you can see, I'm gonna outline the edge of his jacket a little bit here on his sleeves. I'm going to outline his hands as well. Remember how I said that about his hand up near his ear? We can go in with a little bit of black and re-outline it so that you can see the difference between his fingers and his ear. Just like that. And I'm gonna add the little details in his jacket, his little, call it a zipper, I guess. Right there. We're going to outline right here. The little line down so that you can see the separation in this collar. I know it's a little bit tricky to see because I'm using black on dark brown. The camera's not picking it up so well, but I'll hold it up as soon as I'm finished so you guys can see a little bit easier. Just like this. It's got some little lines. Make it look like his jacket's a little bit too big for him. All right, so even if you are still working, I'm gonna have everyone just look at me for just a second so I can show you how to do his nose and his little mouth, okay? So for his nose, it's pretty easy. We're going to take our black and a little tiny bit of our green just to make like a really, really, really dark green. It'll help from making his face look too dark. So I've got that on my brush. And right below his eyes, right in the middle here, I'm just gonna do a little half circle, just like that. And for his nostrils, I'll just put them on there and I'll show you just like that. Kind of like a little, like when you draw a bird in the sky and they're really far away, you just sort of do that little V. And for his mouth, same kind of idea, but just upside down. Start right in the middle. And give him this little smile this way. Kind of like you're drawing a cat mouth, right? If you guys draw cats and dogs, that kind of idea, just like that. Now, it still looks a little bit spooky, but we need to take, you can take the back of your brush, get a little bit of white on there, and if you add the highlights in, makes them look a whole lot cuter. Just like that. I'm gonna give him some little eyebrows with my dark green again. And with just some regular green, you can give him a little hairdo. I'm gonna give him a couple of little tufts of hair on the top of his head. You could do a little curly Q if you want. Just like that. Awesome. So we are almost done our class. I'll stick around until everyone feels good about how their painting ends up. So the last step that we're going to do is take our little detail brush, and it's up to you. I think I'm going to use some black paint, but you could use your white or your brown, whichever one you'd like. And we're going to put either your last name or your first name. We usually do initials here at the studio, so I'm going to put HAS for Hammar's Art Studio right down in the corner here. Either corner is fine. We usually do the bottom right just to keep it all the same. And I'm gonna put 20 for the year as well. Now it's up to you if you'd like to add anything else, if you feel like you're missing something on here. You could do maybe, take a little bit of red and put a little butterfly above his finger, or a dragonfly, or a shooting star in the background with some white if you'd like. It's really up to you. So if you guys don't have any questions, or actually that was not the right way to phrase that. Does anyone have any questions? Any questions or concerns? So this will be, this is a recording, not right now. I'm live, but you will all get an email with the link to this recording. So if you feel like you missed anything from earlier in the beginning of the class today, or if you want to rewatch it and maybe do a drawing lesson or something off of it, you will have that opportunity. And we do have a couple of friends who will be watching this recording and painting along with it as well. They didn't join us for the live. So you will have that opportunity to go back and watch it again. If you have any, thoughts that maybe you missed something or missed a step, you can obviously go back and watch that. So I will stick around for a couple more minutes, but it's looking like everyone is just about finishing up. So make sure, I know I kind of rushed through a couple of the steps at the end. Oh my gosh, awesome guys, those are looking great. Make sure you remember to put the little dots in his eyes, the little reflections in his eyes, because that's what helps to make him look so cute. So little smile, his little nose, and the little details in his eyes will really help. And you can kind of see in our example here, we gave him some little fingernails, just with our sand color. If you want to, you can give him some little claws, right? So, awesome. So I hope you guys had a great time painting along with us today. And we'll be doing a whole lot more of these. We're actually going to start shipping packages out to some friends who live farther away. So if you have any cousins or friends who don't live in New Hampshire or Massachusetts, it's hard for them to get to our studio, we will be sending some packages out as well. So that's a great opportunity to get on here with some family and friends who you don't see very often. You can see everyone on here and have like a little virtual play date, right? So we've got all sorts of art camp stuff going on for next week. We've got a Sonic painting, some horses, hummingbirds, all sorts of really fun stuff. So if you guys enjoyed, we would really like to see some pictures of these afterwards. So if you don't mind taking a picture of your painting, either with you or without you in it, just a photograph would be really awesome. You can send it to our email and we'll put a little collage together. Awesome job. These are looking so good. I'm so proud of everyone. I hope you guys join us again, and hopefully we'll all be in the studio together really soon. Really nice. Yeah, if everyone wants to hold theirs up for a second, that would be great. Nice. Wow. Yeah, these are awesome. Really nice job. Excellent, excellent. All right, friends. Well, I'm going to get going unless anyone has any more questions or comments that they would like to share. I hope you guys had a great time, and we'll see you back here really soon. Have a great rest of your weekend, and hopefully the weather clears up some, right? Awesome. All right, well, it was great to see everyone, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much.